Welcome in, everybody, to the Coach's Corner on the Auburn Undercover Podcast with Ellis Johnson. Coach, good to be with you.
Good to be back. I've been doing a few of these, but not focused on Auburn and the SEC in total, just bounced around some other subjects, so it's good to get back in the SEC.
Well, I know that's your favorite conference.
Yeah, I've been kind of amused since I've been out of it, and have Big Ten and SEC and the fight that's going on. We're going to play 9 games. Y'all going to only play 8. And then they're arguing between themselves about whether they want to play 9 or 8. And then somebody like Eli pops off and says, we need to be playing 9 or something. Says we need 50 teams in the playoffs or something. I don't know what he said, but it was totally opposite of what Sankey's been trying to tell them. So anyhow, it's been a lot of stuff going on. It has nothing to do with actual football. It's hard to keep up, Ronnie.
There is a lot going on. What do you think about the expanded playoff?
I don't like it. Of course, you're talking about, I don't like playoff, period. But I think when the BCS they were doing it that way, it was pretty good. And of course, I got to play in 2 national championship games on BCS formula, so I guess I'm partial. But there were some times, like one of the seasons, remember when Auburn and whoever the other 2 were, but Auburn gets screwed in 2006, 2004. I mean, those things happen. So that for that reason, I like it better if they put more teams in it. But I don't like the buys. I understand that somebody gets rewarded for a good season. At least they took the buys off of those conference champions. And now it'll be strictly the top 4 ranked teams. I wish they had a little bit more, and maybe there was something the other day, but I wish they had a little bit more of a formula than personalities picking these teams. Most people agree on about 8 out of 12, but after that, it's just a lot of brand name stuff, I think, that goes on. TV influence. Somebody from the TV people saying we'd a hell of a lot rather have Tech State U than we would State U Tech, because they ain't going to draw anybody. The next thing you know, that's who's in there. But go ahead.
Do you see, last year SMU made it. Does a 9-3 Alabama team make it over I forget whatever they were, 10-2, 11-1? Does a 9-3 Alabama, considering how SMU performed last year, does an SEC team get in with 3 losses versus an ACC team with 2?
Well, I feel like in many cases that does prove you're a better football team, not just strictly the record. And that's why I think if they really, and it would be a committee doing the formula, but you're never going to get the human element totally out of it. But I'd get it out of it as much as you can, because there's human nature and there's partialities, and a lot of those guys on those committees are still active working for universities. So I think, for instance, last year, I don't know that Alabama was a good 9-3 team. I mean, they had some other close games that they could have lost. So to say that they're better than SMU last year, they didn't have as good a season, but I think they probably were a better football team. And that's Ellis Johnson's opinion. Well, hell, I shouldn't be making the picks, and neither should Lee Corso or anybody else in that damn committee. It needs to be some kind of formula which takes into account, strength of schedule. But the things they can do with technology now, especially this AI they keep talking about, they could have every team have their schedule ranked at the end of the year. Don't tell me how hard it is before you play it. Tell me how hard it was once you got through with it. And they could do that pretty easily. I think another reason that they have the daggum thing is they want to have 5 TV shows, one each week, for the last 5 weeks. And where I say the human thing gets into it, Ronnie, maybe at the very end they get the right teams. But a lot of times when they get down that last 2 or 3 weeks, you'll look and you say, well, how in the hell did they get into the number 13 spot with what they just did last weekend. And they're trying to get them a positionings where if they'll at least go out there and win your game, will get you in. And I just think there's some of that in it.
Well, I don't think there's any question that brand names, for the most part, they get the benefit of the doubt. Now, again, I was really surprised that Alabama was left out last year in favor of some of the others. But
I was a little bit, but the way it ended up in some other situations, if they'd gotten to play in the championship game, might have pushed them over the edge. But I wasn't shocked because you lose to Vanderbilt and you lose to Oklahoma, who was having a hard year. It's hard to explain that. And I just think probably at that particular time of the year, they might not have been one of the best 12 teams.
Let's talk about Baylor this week. How important is this game for Hugh Freeze and for Auburn?
Well, it's never been an unimportant football game. But what I think is very important, I think that Aranda's under a little bit of heat. They've had an average year last year, I think. And so there's a little bit of pressure there. Everybody feels like Hugh has not played as well as their talent level can. When you take the fact that it's not a conference game, it's really not going to hurt either team that much or help the other team more in the long run and in the standings and all that kind of thing to try to get to the playoffs. You can recover from it. But both programs right now are under a little bit of wait and see. And neither one of them have come off of really good seasons. And I think there's some pressure in both camps. So it can mean a lot to the program in a lot of other ways. It doesn't have to be anything to do with the conference title or getting into playoffs. There's a lot riding on it. I think as much as anything, it's the mental state of the kids, and maybe the coaching staff, and the damn fan base. Because, I mean, you're in some business. A fan base will put a lot of pressure on kids, whether they mean to or not. All the social media and all the things that they're exposed to, and there's no way you can insulate them. Might could have back in 1960s, but you can't insulate them from all this stuff. And when a fan base gets really negative on a head coach, the players are going, they feel all that stuff a little bit. Now, I think it can affect your season.
Well, we've certainly both experienced that.
Yeah.
Put us out of business when you were at Mississippi State and we were at Florida. And then and you've had that happen a few times too, I think, over the years.
Yeah, I've been traded about 4 times. Harbison used to call it free agency.
About right.
But the other thing about it now, I don't know about Baylor. I like the fact that Auburn's got 2 lower-level teams right after that game. And the reason is if they don't play well, whether they win or not, but they don't play well, and everybody's still got these damn turnovers and the penalties and yada yada, and the quarterback didn't look that good. And we were told he was going to be the second coming. I think maybe taking those 2 teams the next 2 weeks, hopefully, and winning convincingly and getting your mistakes and everything ironed out. I think that could be very timely for a football team like Auburn because they've brought in a bunch of good talent, both recruiting and portal. I don't think he had a whole lot of coaching changes coming into this year, but since he's been there, he shuffled the staff a little bit, decided he's going to call plays and maybe delegate. And a lot of things have been tweaked and everything. And if they could get some good wins in those first 3 games, I think they can make a heck of a lot of difference. And then right after those first 3, Ronnie, they got a tough road.
Well,
you never know how tough because that team could be down like an Oklahoma last year. But they got who is it? Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Georgia,
Missouri.
Yeah, bang, 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 and then Missouri's going to always be a problem. They do have them at home though, so that's kind of you could do it something like this with everybody's schedule, but I think Auburn's schedule, Baylor's an important game. And not only need to win it, they need to come out of it with confidence, and they need to quiet the fan base a little bit. And if you go out there and play like crap and win luckily, that doesn't calm anything down. Those next two opponents might help them do that.
Well, one thing they've got to do is avoid what happened last year, a loss like Cal. I mean, Baylor's better than Cal was, but, you know, I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, Auburn hadn't had a winning season. I mean, it's been 4 straight losing seasons.
Right.
And, I mean, it's been 50, 60, 70 years since that's happened. And, you know, look, and I don't think most people really don't understand how bad a situation Freeze inherited. But, you know, I think if you look at, I mean, you watch the games the last 2 years, I mean, you know, they lost a bunch of games
that they could have won.
Yep. And so even though the talent level might not have been where it should have been, where it could have been, you know, you still could have won those games.
And it doesn't, I mean, fans don't care. You've been losing seasons 4 years in a row. Whoever's in charge, fix it. You know, and I don't know, I may be wrong about this, but I think all this portal stuff, I think if you get down into a ditch, like Mississippi State's really right now struggling.
Mm-hmm.
We came in and it was not real good either. But it was some players there. They weren't focused. All of them weren't very disciplined, but there was some talent there. And we had a shot to start back over. And it took us 3 years before we were a team that was playing respectable against all the teams in the SEC. Hell, I don't know if you can do that anymore. I don't know exactly all the little details, but it just, to me, when you come in and these guys that you're trying to catch are reloading every year with big money, portal, getting the best kids out of high school, not losing them because they can pay them more than you can. How do you catch up? You know, you got to have players to turn the thing around. You can be the smartest coach in the world, but recruiting's the only way you can turn a program like that around. You got to get enough good players to get where you can at least have a shot to beat people. Then maybe you might outcoach them. But if you ain't got any players, you can't outcoach anybody. So, I mean, they're dangerously getting to that point. You have 5 or 6 losing seasons in a row. It just starts to be where somebody's going to be worried about coming in and trying to be a part of that program.
Well, now
get out of it, huh?
He can't sell playing time anymore. I mean, now it's
right.
Now you've got to sell more than, I mean, you know, you've recruited those young guys. I mean, they've got as good a receiving core as anybody in the country. You got a 5-star quarterback, you got a 4-star quarterback behind him. You should be really good on defense. You got running back by committee, but offensive line's probably been better than it's been should be better than it's been since, I mean, certainly since midway through Malzahn's tenure.
Right.
So they should have should be pretty good, but, you know, I mean, you know, a mutual friend of ours told me, he said, you know, Freeze just can't help himself. You know, his go-to is he wants to throw the ball instead of run it. And when you get down on, you know, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, he wants to throw it. And that's, you know, you better be able to line it up and run it. And I think he's got to have some patience.
If you ever become a team, it's happened to Clemson last year. The big running back shoulder got dinged and he couldn't get it completely well. And he'd had that Shipley kid rotating with him in the past, and they could, you know, shuttle him in and out and keep him fresh. Didn't have that. He just kind of spit the bit after half the season. He just could not carry the load. They didn't have anybody else. And they weren't at physical up front. And it reached a point where if you were getting ready to play them and you broke down their games, you'd say, well, they can't run the ball when they need to. They might go out there and get 100 yards rushing, but they're going to get it on plays like a reverse on 2nd and 18 yards or something. They're going to pick up 30 yards. They can't get 3 yards when they had to have 3 yards running the football in the box. And so that really, if it happens early on and you know, nobody knows, they don't really game plan that. And so they're worried, you know, it's 3rd and 2.5. You're trying to play something that you can stop everything instead of just saying, screw it, they can't run the football. We're going to come after the damn quarterback. But after about 5 games of it, you got a problem. And I thought what Klubnik did last year against Texas was amazing because he had no running game with him. And that's where I agree with you 100%, especially in the conference like the SEC. You don't have to run it all the time on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1, But if you get to the point where people say he's cautious, he didn't want to run it. He didn't have any confidence in his guys to get that yard and get that second yard, get that third yard. They don't have the confidence. So they're going to try to throw the ball. And then you can game plan that stuff.
Well, and I mean, last year he had Jarquez Hunter. He had one of the better backs in the league, and he's, but the kid that transferred, his name slips my mind, but the kid that transferred in from UConn, they feel really good about him. But I mean, you brought up the portal earlier. I see a little bit of a different issue. You look at Florida State, and you win 12, 13 games one year, and then you turn around, you try to reload through the portal, and you win 2. And I think if you fill up with too many portal kids, you end up with a locker room problem.
Right. And there's no question to me as a coach, and I think college coaches are adapting a hell of a lot faster than what I thought they could. To me, it would be a whole lot harder to keep the identity of your program and your culture and the intangible factors that go along, building a real good football team, a group that has confidence in each other when they're out on the field and have great communication and great effort. And there's not a lot of bullshit going on in the locker room or on the sidewalks because you brought in 3 knuckleheads.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things, like Brad Long used to say, our defensive line coach, he said, it's hard to win a college football game. And if everybody in your program is not pulling on the same rope, it's damn near impossible. Mm-hmm. And that's what you get, to me, in the portal, if you're not really careful. They're doing, I think everybody's got more personnel on top of it, and they're doing a better job of evaluating the playing ability. Is he going to really bring enough to the table for us to bring him in here? And also, the things you're talking about is if he's got a little bit of character issues in his past, you better find that out. I mean, you better fine-tooth comb it and don't bring them into your program. I don't give a dang what their stats are. They can ruin your program. And I'm not saying that's what happened to Florida State last year, but I think if you bring in 50 new kids every year from high school and college combined, that's hard to get glued together.
It is, 100%.
And usually you can groom those high school kids, but you better recruit the portal kids the same way the high school kids. You better find out what's been going on the last 2 years. Is this guy going to bring a bunch of trash with him, or is he coachable? Is he a team guy? Is he going to work his ass off in the weight room, or is he going to constantly be complaining, corner cutting, and all that kind of stuff? I think that's much harder to do when you pull a portal kid. And I think a lot of times they go over, find out, where's he coming from? He was a starter there, and he's got to be able to help us. We don't know half anything about him. You didn't really evaluate him properly.
Well, it's a little bit like JUCO used to be. Now everybody's using the portal, and I mean, if a kid's in junior college, there's a reason he's in junior college typically, whether it's grades or whether it's character or whether it's, whatever it may be. And I'm not saying that all the portal kids are like that. Some of them just, they just want to play. But a lot of them, there's a reason they're in portal.
That's right. Well, was a guy on Rob Brown's podcast the other day with us. He's an analytics guy. And he had done a study on portal transfer guys. And he said the ones that transfer down, he said, don't draft them. He said, they never pan out. And he said, I said, well, why? I mean, anybody can have statistics. He said, well, I'm not sure about that part. That's what, as a coach, you might, but I said, well, the only thing I can think of is 2 things. Number one, somebody misjudges talent. And number 2, he's not a worker. He's not a grinder. He's got to go somewhere where it's a little easier. And that's 2 factors right there. You're going to be a failure. If you try to become a pro, you ain't going to have what you need.
How do you see the SEC? Well, let me ask you one other question. Auburn recognized several additional national championships. Considering where we are with the playoff and considering where recruiting is and considering what the school on the other side of the state has done for years, is that a good thing Auburn did? Or?
Well, the one thing I didn't understand was the timing on it. Of course, I'm not a media guru, but I thought to put that out there right now is sort of like you want somebody to look at the shiny object and quit looking at the football team for a while. We're tired of your negativity. But anyhow, when I read it, and you see all the other championships that people have been claiming and who they were actually voted by, when you go back to where they didn't even have anything but UPI or something, AP or something, I don't remember what it was. But I read it and I said, this makes perfect sense. And I'm sitting there thinking, why the hell didn't they do it earlier? Maybe we could have recruited to that when we were there.
Well, if you look at,
I mean, some of Alabama's in years back, they were just as arbitrary.
Well, one year, if I remember correctly, Alabama finished 23rd in one of the national polls and fourth in the conference. And somebody named them national champion, and hell, they claim it. And if you look at some of the ones that Auburn claimed, or recognized, back in the 1900s, those games weren't on TV. You had people in the Big Ten and on the West Coast voting. Hell, they didn't watch the SEC games. Right. And you look at '83. Auburn's ranked number 3, and Nebraska's number 1. And I think, if I remember right, Texas was number 2, and Auburn had lost to Texas earlier in the year. Texas loses. Miami beats Nebraska and jumps from number 5 to number 1, and Auburn stays at 3. And Nebraska drops to 2. And so, Auburn still won the New York Times poll plus a couple others. That ought to be recognized, in my opinion. Now, you look at the same thing in 2004, and USC wins the national championship. It was polled to play. It was wire to wire. USC and Oklahoma they started 1-2 and finished 1-2. But when you've got one team that forfeits national championship because they're cheating, and the team they beat, they got blown out, and the number 3 team is undefeated and played in the toughest conference in America, and you won several other polls, I think you ought to recognize it.
Sure. And I couldn't remember what the other polls were on that one. Of course, I haven't coached against them. The 2 running backs, Brown and Cadillac. You didn't ever play against something like that much anymore.
They played us, and I was at Florida at that particular time, and Cadillac got hurt, and this was 2002, I guess, and we ended up, I think we won in overtime. But Cadillac got hurt, and we're feeling pretty good. And hell, they brought in Ronnie Brown, and shit, he was he was better than Cadillac. And we're sitting over on the sideline thinking, geez. We ended up winning the game. Taylor Jacobs caught a touchdown pass. I think it was in overtime, and we ended up pulling it out. But
they kicked our butts. That was the first year I was at Mississippi State, and we had a decent defense. We just couldn't score any points, but we never slowed them down. I remember, I can't remember where we were. I'm gonna say that Rich Bisaccia was coaching with Gruden in Tampa Bay. I'm just guessing because I didn't know John Gruden that well, and we were somewhere together. And they had first pick or something. They had a really early pick. And he said, all right, you coached against him. He said, who would you take, Williams or Brown? I said, Brown. Mm-hmm. And he said, really? I said, yeah. I said, he might not have the stats, but I said, Cadillac's going to end up getting hurt.
And he did.
He's reckless, and he didn't really look like he was as flexible and as fluid as Ronnie did to me, just by the eye test. But I thought he was better back overall for pros.
I did too. I agree.
I think they drafted Cadillac. I said
they did.
I thought, hell, he didn't give a crap what I thought. I ain't going to get no job with him anytime soon.
How do you see the 16-team SEC race?
Oh, I kind of put it. There's a group of 5 or 6 up there at the top. And I think it'd have a hard time just picking one out. And I do think if you just go by rosters and star potential and all that, I think Texas has got the best football players. I don't know if they're necessarily going to win it. I might have marked that in this magazine, but there's Lindy's. It was the way Lindy's had them ranked. And I looked at it and I thought, yeah, here it is. Texas, LSU, Alabama, Georgia. I just look at those 4, and they all, I think, have got a roster full of players that can win it. but all of them have got a freckle somewhere. And I mean, I think Arch Manning's going to have been a great player, but again, he's not played. And he may have 2 or 3 those bad hair days or something. You don't know.
So, we had Terry Bowden. We started doing a show with Terry Bowden on Monday nights, and he made a good point. He said, when I got hired at Auburn, he said, there was a lot of concern. He said, I was a Bowden, and I'm still a Bowden, but I'm not Bobby Bowden. And there's some truth in that. I mean, he could be a Manning.
Well, the other thing, he's a heck of an athlete, but they're not totally unlike, but he's not yours. And I think it's going to be a different job for a play caller too, a game planner and a play caller. And you ain't got a whole lot of time to hit your 5th gear because of the people on your schedule. I mean, you better have it running full speed by first and second game, exactly what you're good at and what you need to quit trying to do. And, you'll think he can do everything. And if you try to do everything, you're going to put too much pressure on him. And he'll have a lot of good players around him too. But I think he'll be a different player that you got to call plays for Manning a little different than you called him for yours. And maybe that's over exaggerating, but I just think that. LSU got the oldest quarterback in the league, probably the most mature, if you would. Been through a lot of tough times, stayed there, didn't leave. I think Alabama, this may sound weird, I think their quarterback situation is going to be better than it was last year for the reason that I don't think they'll get as many bad plays from the quarterback play. I think they'll play better in the system, and they'll quit turning balls over and, having them win on 35-yard runs and 50-yard bombs. And I think they'll be a better football team. And then Georgia, provided Stockton, I don't think it's hard to look and see that he doesn't have the skills that the guy had last year. Right. What's his name? The one who went to Miami.
Name, but I know you're talking. Yeah.
But, there's a whole lot of difference there. Well, you just can't flip that over in the middle of a game sometime, and maybe not even for the next game. But he played decent against Notre Dame, when he had his practice time and he got to start. And, I think he's going to be good enough to give them a shot that they'll be good enough. I don't think they're nearly as deep as they've been. Maybe none of those teams are. Who knows with all the portal. But I know there's about 6 more that may not win it. I don't think they've got the roster or the quarterback to win it. But they're going to beat somebody that has a shot to go to the championship, and they're going to get their butt beat by Oklahoma, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Auburn, Texas A&M. So it's just, I know you asked a question and I didn't answer it, but it's hard. I mean, I don't know how you pick it.
I'm looking at Texas' schedule here, and they kind of hit the jackpot. Same thing last year. They opened up with Ohio State, but you look at the rest of the schedule. You got San Jose State, UTEP, Sam Houston, at Florida, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vandy, and then Georgia, Arkansas, A&M. I mean, it's still an SEC schedule, but
they potentially have, if you get the worst 6 teams, the outlook and the prediction, the worst 6 teams, they play 5 of them. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're exactly right. They are not going to run the meat grinder. We think. We always look at it preseason, and then it's like I thought Carolina's schedule last year was going to be murder. They caught A&M, they caught Oklahoma, they caught some of these big dang teams on a year where they weren't playing well every week. Mm-hmm. And they did a good job too. But their schedule was not nearly as hard as it looked starting at the starting gate. It didn't turn out to be as tough.
I mean, and you look at Texas versus, I'm pulling up Oklahoma here. I mean, Oklahoma, let's see their schedule. They've got, this is Oklahoma's schedule this year. You got Illinois State, Michigan, Temple, Auburn, Kent State, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU. I mean, that's a hell of a difference in what Texas plays.
Yeah, especially down the stretch. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of how I break it down. I mean, I think that Texas, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, I think they can legitimately say we've got a team this year that can get there. The rest of them, they got something they're going to have to overcome in their own camp, and I for different things. But when you got the kind of talent in certain areas that Texas A&M has, they're sitting down there ranked 12th in the conference, and you start thinking about the people that they've got sitting in that locker room. I just don't see that, and I think Elko's a good coach too. I don't know, if he's this is going to be his final stumbling block or something. But when you turn Duke around, I mean, they weren't just a fluke there, and they weren't just a good team or had a lucky draw on a player that came in. They were physical, and they'd kick your ass and beat you in turnovers and other things that you got to do to win football games. Not at Texas A&M so far. They've been shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, and I think they probably loaded with talent.
It's a little bit, so one of I forget who it was telling me this story now, but said that it was when Darryl Royal was the coach of Texas, and they're standing out there in the middle of the field, and he said something to Royal about, hey, A&M's going to be, they're having a pretty good year, and he said, don't worry about it, they always ag you up. And that's kind of the history of the place. I mean, it's been a long time since
somebody we were talking on some group, some chat, and they were saying that they get almost too just hyped to play Texas. They absolutely just drain themselves for 5 days, and then they try to go over and play them, and they lay an egg. But I don't know. As a kid, I never liked Texas. I never liked Michigan, Ohio State. It was just, and I guess I'd listen to my dad, my older brothers talking about football and everything. And Oklahoma, of course, Oklahoma wasn't bad, but they were kind of a stepchild to Texas, money-wise and recruiting area and all that. But they'd kick their ass at least every other year, if not more. And but I always liked Oklahoma better than Texas, and I always loved Texas A&M, and pulled for them when I didn't know what apple butter from beans about them, but I was a damn Texas A&M fan because I just liked the school, and so I don't know, I just never have liked Texas.
I haven't either. So,
and there's two schools I'd never pull for. And it's because I've had too many interactions with their fans, and that's UVA and UNC. Those are the most elitist people that you'll ever be around in your life. And you go back and look at the history of what they've won in their football programs, and it's pitiful. But they were dang good when we played them. When George Welch was there, boy, he kicked our ass at Clemson 2 years in a row.
We beat them in 97 when I was at Auburn, and then we got – they started out with us in 98, and they whipped our ass. And then we ended up, I think we played 6 centers that year and lost 5 for the season. And, of course, Terry ended up resigning mid-season, but it was, he's still, Terry Bowden still has the best, and he was there 6 years, still has the best 5-year start of any coach in Auburn history. I'm not
surprised at that at all. But I don't know how he turned it so well. But the very first year I was at Alabama in 1990, that was the first year Virginia ever beat Clemson. 1990. And I mean, it was like 46 games they played, or I don't know. I mean, in history. And Coach Howard used to call them white meat. Boys, we got to play that white meat next week. We'll have a good time. They got George Welch turned that thing around. They had some good players, man.
They did.
We played really well one year, and they beat us 23 to 10 or something.
Take us inside the locker room. You coached at Alabama and Auburn. How do those two schools view each other? How does the talk about Iron Bowl week at each place?
It's a mixture. There's a lot of the fan base, they're like, it's like total respect. and they would try to beat the other one to death if they could, but just anything under the table, I respect them too much. And then there's some, and they need to go get a pill or take some medicine for it because it's going to kill them one day. I don't see that much difference really in the fans. When I try to say, well, this fan base was like this and this fan base was like that. I never saw that. It was more individuals and stuff. But I do remember this. I remember this when I was coaching at Alabama and had not yet come to Auburn and never had coached in the SEC. And so when I got over there, and I heard some guys talking about everything, but I remember it took me about 2 times going down there, and then also playing in Birmingham. And I mean, you started to realize Auburn Stadium was louder. And we sitting here thinking, hell, we ain't even got enough tickets for all these people that want to come to our games, but our fans are not loud. and finally we figured it out. The average age, it's probably not now, but the average age of fans sitting in Bryant-Denny was probably up in 30 years old, 40 years old. The average age sitting in Auburn was in the 20s because it was a much younger fan base. And that was because, hell, you couldn't get tickets at Alabama unless you'd been in the damn Tide Pride for 30 years. Then you could get you some tickets. But it was more rich folks and older people, and they don't sit there and yell like crazy people. You go down there and try to play in Auburn, you couldn't hear yourself talk. I mean, it was a different thing. And then Mike took over, and I came back from Clemson, and it was the year I can't remember whether it was the first year back,
95, 96.
I can't remember. I mean, we lost the first year I was back, and then 2 years later when we played down there, we beat them when Tubbs was there. But I can't remember which game it was. But Mike was just sitting over there, showering, getting dressed after the game, and he just kind of looked and he said, "Man," he said, "I tell you what, you have to admire this fan base." He said, "This place is so much louder than we are." And I said, it's true. And it's probably not that much difference now because they've enlarged the freaking stadium, up to 100,000. But back then, hell, it didn't hold but 60 something maybe.
Ron Zook, we had him on last week, and he was talking about. He said Auburn was the loudest college stadium he'd ever been in. And I remember when we were at Auburn, he used to talk about. He said, "I'm not just saying this because you went to school there." He said, "But and he was a defensive coordinator at Florida in '93, and if you remember, Auburn's driving down against number 1 ranked Florida and Calvin Jackson, and Florida's about to go. They're about to go up. I think was it 14-0, 17-3, or something to that effect. And Warfel throws that pass out there in the flat, and Calvin Jackson takes it 99 yards. And as Zook said, he said that effing place erupted. He said, "I've never heard anything that loud." And so
I don't. What Freddie Kitchens told me?
What's that?
And I'd say he's a quarterback that started for 3 years in the SEC. Mm-hmm. And I'd say he'd know about noise.
Yep.
He was over here at Carolina one year, a couple of years ago, when he did a little analyst work with Baylor. And he told me, he said, "Coach," he said, "that's the loudest damn stadium I ever had to play in."
Wow.
I said, "Williams-Brice?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I don't know what it is." He said, it's like the thing, I don't know if it's the way it's built or I don't know. It's not that much closer to the field, and it's not an overly large stadium. I think it's 86 or 83. I don't know. It's not one of the largest ones. And it's starting to get that reputation. But I'm telling you, I never had listened to it. Hell, we were always on defense, and nobody wasn't loud for us. So,
hey, every time I've been there, it's a great environment. I mean,
it
really.
is. And I'm going to tell you now, it is loud. But now that's an SEC quarterback that started for 3 years at Alabama, and he said it was the loudest stadium he'd ever tried to communicate in.
Well, I mean, and you look around the conference. I mean, when LSU's good, when Florida's good, I mean, it's and I haven't been to Texas in a long time. I haven't been out there since Charlie Strong was coach. But I was at Ohio State a couple of years ago, and it's just, not that Ohio State wasn't loud, because it was, but when you compare it to top 6, 7 stadiums in the SEC, I didn't think it was very comparable.
Yeah. I've never been in a Big Ten stadium other than Illinois. We played out there when I was at East Carolina back in the 80s, but I've never been to a Big Ten stadium that I can recall. Well, went to Penn State way back in the 80s also. We were at East Carolina. Hell, East Carolina, we were so stupid. We would find anybody that could kill us and sign them to a schedule. And what genius is taking Mississippi State down to Hattiesburg?
Here's another question.
Somebody ought to be fired for that.
Somebody ought to be fired. What is Florida doing playing? Let me pull up their schedule here. They're playing Miami.
Florida's playing a team up there, Long Island or somewhere.
They're playing Miami, Central Florida. Now, here's their schedule. I just pulled it up here. They've got South Florida, and I think they played at South Florida last year, if I remember. But you got South Florida this year out of conference. South Florida, at Miami, and Florida State. That's your and Long Island. That's your out of conference schedule. I mean, hell, I don't know how you. I'm not sure why you do that. You play
Long Island University.
Long Island University, but why are you playing South Florida? And I think last year they played Central Florida, but maybe it was the year before. But I mean, why are you playing South Florida, Miami, and Florida State in the same season, plus your SEC schedule? I'm not sure how.
Well, I can almost understand how those happen, because you have to schedule them so far out if you're going to get them, and then to have Florida State and Miami. I mean, I've often wondered why they don't play them every year. But the South Florida thing, I think that's probably just something that happened and they couldn't move it off of there or whatever. But Long Island, I mean, it's embarrassing.
I'll tell you what. Now, let's pick some games this weekend.
All right.
Let me pull up the schedule here.
I think Florida will beat Long Island.
You think?
That's my pick of the week.
Let's see. Thursday night, we've got Central Arkansas at Missouri.
Yeah. I mean, there's about 7 where teams are playing teams that, have no chance. And I don't know how bad they'll beat them, but obviously I think that'll be an easy opener for them.
Then we'll finish up with Auburn and Baylor, but Texas at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think the Texas game, the Auburn game, and the LSU game, those are really games that, you'll learn something about some teams in those. But the Texas Ohio State, I kind of feel like they've got almost an impossible task to go up there and beat Ohio State in Ohio Stadium. But when I look at what they've got coming back and some of the other things, and Ohio State, their quarterback's gone too. And it ain't gonna shock me if Texas goes up there and wins by double digits.
I picked Ohio State, but I'm not real confident in it.
Yeah, of course, bookies have got Ohio State. So it's the first time in history that the number 1 ranked team is an underdog in their opening game.
Didn't realize that. We got Syracuse at Tennessee.
I think Tennessee, unless they just have a debacle at quarterback,
and they could.
I think they'll beat Syracuse double digits.
Mississippi State at Southern Miss.
I don't know anything about Southern Miss, but haven't been able to keep up with them much. But like I said, they ought to fire somebody that did that. If they want to go play on a neutral site or something, we played them in Jackson when I was at Southern Miss and beat them. But in the next year, they came to Hattiesburg and beat us. But I don't know. I don't know why people do that anymore. I mean, with the way things are, powerful football and all that. But I think State will have a solid win. But they're obviously not a great football team right now.
Toledo at Kentucky.
Yeah, not real informed on Toledo. I mean, they've got a decent program. this one could be harder than people think it is, because I think Kentucky, they'll win the ball game on turnovers and probably control the football and get a win, but I could see that being a decent ball game for at least 3 quarters.
Marshall and Georgia.
Marshall's a dangerous football team, but I think Georgia wins this one, maybe 20 points.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Alabama and Florida State, that's going to be interesting. I talked to a couple of coaches over at Alabama. They think they're going to win, but they're not. They're a little bit nervous. They're not sure what to expect from Florida State.
Yeah, well, this is a trap game. I mean, you got to go on the road. You got a school that's been there before. I mean, it ain't like they never played. And I just think you have to wonder, what has Florida State got? Like you said earlier, they did the portal 2 years ago and kicked everybody's butt. They did the portal last year and had just an abortion, and they've done the portal again. Now, the other thing that's going to be interesting, if Gus is coming in there and run his offense, the one thing you'll know is that they're going to try to run the football on Alabama. And I don't know if they can or not. I mean, I don't know anything about Florida State's depth chart, who they got, running backs and all that. But there's so many new faces coming in there. But if he runs that style of offense, they're going to try to run the football. It doesn't matter if Green Bay lines up over there. So,
it's going to be interesting that there are a lot of schools that with coaches with massive buyouts. A couple in the SEC. You look at LSU, and I'm not sure what Napier's buyout is. It's not anywhere close to Brian Kelly, but you got there's if Auburn starts out slow, there's going to be some heat there. Florida State, Norvell's got a huge buyout, so it's going to be interesting to see. I know A&M pulled the plug a couple of years ago on Jimbo, but who else is willing to do that?
Yeah, and some things have happened since that time. I mean, this damn thing that came down on paying the players 6 years back, I mean, that hit some schools, and it was like an electric current going through them. They were like, hell, man, we're paying coaches, we're paying players, and now we're playing players that they're not here anymore. We don't have that kind of money. And I think it's going to stop some of that stuff, Ronnie. What it better stop is giving them these ridiculous contracts to start with.
Well, I agree. And the other thing is, if you look around, you and I did this a long time and did it a long time ago too. I mean, you look at the number of people that some of these programs have working in personnel. And I have to believe that a lot of that's top heavy. And I'm not saying that you don't need a scouting staff in the new age of college football, but I mean, it just seems like to me that you've got people running everywhere. And I'm not, having worked in a football office for quite a long time, I'm not sure what some of these people are doing.
I agree. Now, a lot of stuff changed since I was in it, but I wouldn't have wanted to be burdened with all that stuff when I was a coordinator, trying to figure out all those kind of things, because I didn't know anything about it, and I wouldn't want to be having to put 4 or 5 hours a week into it. So, I mean, we were already working from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and I mean, we weren't pissing around over either. So I could see where they need help, but I agree with you. It's like overkill. I don't know, but I think the money part of it, you need somebody in there that's kind of like a GM. I think it'd be hard for the coaches to sit down and tell a kid, we want to pay you this. And the kid says, well, wait a minute, I thought I can go somewhere else. And then coach kind of dealing with that. I think that really, I don't know how you'd ever not have divisions and rifts in between relationships with players that you got to try to coach. So it was interesting. I had an article the other day I was reading, and it actually, somebody called around. You probably saw it. It was an ESPN article, and they called a bunch of schools and asked them, just anonymously. You don't have to tell us who the person is, but what are you paying your quarterback? What are you paying your interior offensive line? Are you paying your centers or your guards or your tackles differently? And got all that info. Did you read that thing?
I missed that.
I mean, it looked kind of like an NFL. It was kind of scaled the same way. The quarterback's getting the big bucks. The edge rushers are getting the big bucks. Corners are making more than safeties. running backs, wideouts are making more than tight ends. And it actually were paying tackles more than guards. And it almost looked like, they've got these things valued just like the pros do in the draft. And of course, half of them have hired pro guys now, and they probably brought that thing with them. But a lot of it makes sense structurally, but I think it's ruining college football. But it was pretty interesting. And it said, one of the things it said is that the general managers were probably lowballing them a little bit when they responded because they didn't want to heat up the other teams and get them paying more. They said it was kind of hard to tell when they were shooting it straight.
I believe it. Speaking of you brought up the pros. Talk about Belichick. How do you see that?
That's I don't know. I think it's going to take a while. If he's willing to grind on it and they're willing to be patient with him, I think this year might be a little tough. Now, I thought he made good hires. He did bring his son with him, and I think his son's success in the pros has been mixed at best. And he's only been successful when he was with Bill. But other than that, I mean, Freddie Kitchens, Lance Thompson, somebody else that's on the staff that I know well. Remember Jamie Collins that played for us at Southern Miss? Jamie's coming. He tried to get Stephon Gilmore, and Gilmore wanted to see how the free agent thing wound down, because he could get picked up any day. As of right now, they probably got himself priced out of the league. But hiring some guys that used to coach and knows that they would be really good teachers of the techniques and the fundamentals. But then he's got him some really good proven football coaches too. So, I mean, everything I've seen and read about or seen, I think a lot of this, we want to be the 37th NFL team or what? How many have you got? 36 in the NFL?
32.
We want to be the 33rd NFL team. I think that's a recruiting gimmick. I don't think he's running it like a pro team. I think he's, just selling them. I know what it takes to play in that league, and what you will do here for 3 or 4 years, I'll make sure that you're prepared to go. So, I think he's going to be successful if he's willing to stay there and get it straight.
Is he running the show, or is his 20-year-old girlfriend running the show?
Oh, I think all that's overrated too.
Let's see. We've got Alabama, A&M, at Arkansas.
Lost my cheat sheet here. Yeah, Arkansas has not been a good football team, but I think they got better talent than they've been playing, than they've been producing, and I think they're going to be a little better this year.
Illinois State at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's going to get on track.
He's really retooled the staff out there. He's retooled the staff out there, and they brought in the quarterback from Washington State, brought in the coordinator from out there, and he's brought in Kevin Wilson even as an analyst. And so they got a pretty good. He's got a pretty good staff. I think much better than last year.
His operations or analyst guy that was with him here at Clemson took over Wes Godwin and took over the coordinator thing. When Dabo let him go, he's out there with him too, and probably doing similar to what he did for him when he was at Clemson. Because he tried to take Wes when he went to Oklahoma, and Dabo didn't want to lose him, and so he made him coordinator. But they've changed the staff, they've changed quarterbacks, they've changed a lot of personnel, and I think they'll be better this year. It's same old though. They're trying to put a lot of parts together in a short time, and so we'll see.
Well, our game of the week is Long Island University versus Florida.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Florida and
UTSA.
Call my bookie. And
my uncle is he's a double amputee, but I'm sure he will be. He's getting out of the hospital today, but he graduated from Florida, so I'm sure he's getting home this afternoon. So he'll be popping his oxycodone and his beer as soon as he gets home. He'll be ready to go. UTSA.
I didn't even know they had a football team. I've heard of the school, but I didn't know they played football.
I didn't either. UTSA at A&M.
They might play them pretty well for about a half. San Antonio's got a good program. They're putting money in it and facilities and all that.
And Jeff Traylor's a really good football coach.
Yeah. I feel like A&M's going to have a solid victory, but I think that'll be a pretty good game for a while.
Georgia State at Ole Miss.
Don't know much about Georgia State. They can't play with Ole Miss. I know that. They'll give them some trouble a little bit for a while.
Virginia Tech at South Carolina.
I think, again, South Carolina's got better players in their locker room, but there's a lot of portal parts. And, the one thing I'm getting a little bit concerned, I know the kid's talented. I know he's got great ceiling, if you will. They put an awful lot on one kid, and that he's going to be the savior that turns them back to, SEC championship game or something. I don't know he has the cast around him to get that done. I'm talking about Lenore Seller.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that he's got the surrounding cast. And the more and more and more pressure it is on him to make 10 big plays a game instead of 3, he could easily get a little worn down. And 4 or 5 of the teams they play, he's going to get hit. And so I'm a little concerned about him in the long haul. But I think they should have a really solid win against Tech, though.
LSU and Clemson.
I'll take Clemson mainly because they're at home. But I think this one, I've seen Clemson practice, and I've seen 2 scrimmages. They've got at least 5 kids on each side of the ball that may go first round.
Wow.
But I don't think they're as deep as those teams he had that got to the national championship. I don't think they're as deep with the big boys. And those guys get tired, and it affects their production. So hopefully they got some young kids developing. They'll be better. But I've seen them, and they look like on a given snap of the ball, they can blister your butt. But I don't know they can make it through 15, 16 games.
I picked LSU, and I think it's a really, really big game for Brian Kelly. I mean, and you talk about getting negative. I mean, they get negative in a lot of places, but they get real negative LSU.
He's brought a lot of it on himself. That there was one real ugly loss they had. They lost to somebody almost 3 touchdowns. One of those openers. He's lost 5 openers in a row. Is it, or 4?
I'm not even sure.
But one of them was a bad loss. I mean, it was ugly. The rest of them, they went down and played Florida State at Florida State, and that's the year Florida State won 12 games. They went out the West Coast last year and played Southern Cal. USC
and Florida State in 2023, 2022, lost to Florida State again. 2021, they lost to UCLA. Well, I'll tell you what now. Lost to Mississippi State in 2020.
He wasn't there then, was he?
He wasn't there then, but that's that's not a real good record in opening games.
No, but since he's been there, this is his 4th year, 5th year.
I think it's his 4th year, I believe. But it's going to get hot down there now. If they lose to, they open up and lose to Clemson again, and then you look at the rest of their schedule. They've got Clemson, La Tech, Florida, Southeast Louisiana, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vandy, A&M, Alabama, Arkansas, Western Kentucky, Oklahoma. So it's manageable.
Yeah. I want to see if Clemson can stop their running game. If they can be effective against LSU's running game, I think they'll beat LSU. But I think it's supposed to be good up front. I don't know who to back they have. The other thing, they've not, Clemson used to have really good place kickers and punters. For like 12 years running. And the last 2-3 years, they haven't been quite as talented there. And if their punts are inconsistent and they give this Brown kid that came from Kentucky, if they give him, a low-hanging kick that he can catch on the run or, get going, He is dangerous. Barian Brown, isn't that his name?
I believe so.
I mean, and so they need to make sure that they're really sharp in the kicking game, because he could be a big factor.
Yeah, you look at the kicking game. It cost Auburn a bunch, some games last year. The starting kicker who's from Fort Payne, Alabama, and is married to my to one of my cousins, actually, or my cousin's son. He had colitis, or he had surgery in the offseason. So their number one kicker was out most of every game except one.
I saw that. And I tell you, Ron, you go back, and that year, our first year there at Auburn with Gus, we could run the football. Our punter, I think we had 4 punt returns attempted that season.
Wow.
I might be that much. That's pretty hyped right there. Maybe I'm off a little bit, but we hardly had one attempted to be returned. And in the kickoffs, we hardly had one ever attempted to run back. They'd kick them out the back of the end zone. And they were really good. Parkey was good from short distance, and the kid that I can't remember his name, Dad was a tennis player at Alabama. What was his name? Sort of like a foreign name, but he wasn't a foreigner. I mean, we had specialists, and we could run the football. And all we had to do defensively is make about 6 real critical plays in critical times of the game. Get a stop, at a critical time of the game, or get a key turnover, because we were not a great defense. But you can win if you have those other ingredients. And I mean, it's important, man.
It's super important. We get to
Florida, getting where they can kick field goals from 50 yards. And I mean, it's pro type stuff. And when they don't make them, it's normally something wrong with the operations or the protection. It's not the kicker. A lot of them can kick it that far.
And people don't realize how important it is. When we get to Florida, and we didn't have a punter, and we had 2 walk-on punters, and we said, okay, whoever wins the competition, we'll put them on scholarship. So we go out there, and the kid wins the competition, and we start him, and he goes out and drops the down punt to start. And then we take him out and put the other kid in. He gets one blocked. And so, first thing we did, we go out and sign a punter, and we tell him, hey, look, you're the starter, because we don't have anybody else. That'll get you beat.
Nick called it hidden yardage. All these different things that happen in the course of the game, like letting a punt hit the ground and roll. Mm-hmm. Now, if you punted somebody and the ball hit on like the 35-yard line and rolled 12 yards down to the 18, and everybody's mad, but they don't really get upset about it. I mean, it's like, oh, he should have tried to catch that ball. You get to the end of the game, mm-hmm. and your best running back averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Or that's what give him 6 yards a carry. And the quarterback, the average completion yardage was 12 yards of completion. And you gave up 18 yards on a punt that wasn't caught. I mean, hell, it's important.
It's really important.
And you don't see it because people don't really, it's not like somebody running over somebody for 18 yards or catching a pass, over the top of somebody. It's just a ball rolling on the ground.
Right.
But some of the bitch is rolling to goal line. And so those things are huge.
Well, and people don't, unless you have a kicker who can place the ball. I mean, if you got a punter who can place the ball, you got a kicker who can place the ball, they'll win you some games. And if you have one who can't,
I'm telling you that stat. You go back and look at that season we had, and it was kind of a Cinderella season, obviously. But it was just amazing the field position we'd start with on an average, stuff like that. And it was the punters. And the kickoff guy. And what happens in the national championship. And I was listening to Jimbo talking about something the other day. I don't know what it was on. I think it was probably Instagram. But they averaged 29-point wins that year, that team from Florida State.
Yeah.
That was their average point spread on all games combined, was they beating people by 29 points. and we had them beat.
Absolutely.
And two of the most devastating plays were the kicking game.
Mm-hmm.
They were absolutely sucking wind, and then they faked that punt and got down in the red zone and put points on the board. And then the next thing happened, a kid pulled a hamstring trying to cover a kickoff. And most of the time, we didn't have to worry about it because the ball would be back in the end zone. But this time, they brought it out, and they ran right through that alley and touchdown. And we'd not had anything like that happen the whole season. And we've been smothering people on the other side of it. And it really was too hard to overcome.
Well, you're right. It had them beat. It was, and if Trey Mason falls down at the 1 yard line.
That's that old thing, should you score or should you try to score late? And next thing, you slide down at the 2 yard line, and then the next play you fumble the freaking ball.
Yep.
But I don't think you ever trade a touchdown unless it's potentially the last play of the game.
I tend to agree with you. But before we let you go, let's pick Auburn and Baylor.
I think Auburn, and I'm sitting here saying that, and I don't know anything about Baylor, other than I think they've really kind of been stuck in second gear. And I don't know what they did about it in the portal. I don't know what they did about changes. And so I'm very not educated on it to make this statement. But I think Auburn's got a better football team. And what they got to do is go on the road and beat a good football team. It's not a great football team. But they have got to find themselves, cut out the fumbles, cut out the incompletions, missed throws, drops, all the self-inflicted errors. If they clean up 80% of those and only have one or two of them the whole game, I think they'll beat them easily.
And you look at Baylor last year. They started out 2-4 and won their last 6. Now it wasn't a tough schedule. You had, they ended up with Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, TCU, West Virginia, Houston, Kansas. So it's not murderer's row, but you end the season. Of course, then they lost in the bowl game to LSU. But the regular season, they ended up with 6 straight wins. So they ended up 8-5 last year. So it should be a pretty good game. I picked all.
I think it's a tough opponent for an opening game, especially going on the road. But I just feel like they got a little bit better talent in that locker room, and if they all on the same page and play well and don't have self-inflicted errors, turnovers, that type of thing, I think they'll be all right.
Well, it's good to be with you again this week.
Enjoyed it.